Okay. So I'd like to break out the group into, we're 13, maybe let's break it out into 3 groups. And then I'd like you to say something about your classroom. Firstly, I would like you to introduce to each other, of course. And then I'd like you to share about your classroom, about your administrator support, about your PLC if you have one, and about what are the things that you want for support or suggestion to make things better in your classroom. Okay, so I'd like to drop those things in the chat. That way you guys can get started. So let me just copy that in the chat, and then I'm gonna put you into group of 3. That way, let's say 4. So 4 break rooms, and then I'm gonna let you go to your break room, and then you guys can go there. Okay, so you should be able to talk to your colleagues and share ideas. Okay, so for the meantime, I'm gonna talk to Jason. So basically, I'm gonna have them 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna talk about different parts of the website, and then I'm gonna have you on that quantile.
Okay, that's great. I'm ready. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right, good, good. Looks like you've got a couple people that may, well, there we go.
I think they went into the, so.
All right, well, I will be here. I'll be ready whenever you are.
Yeah, no problem. Like I'm just I think we're good on the timing, and I'm just, yeah, I think it's
Okay.
So room 14, I got 12, 13. So let me see. Okay, I think I'm just gonna bring them back. Should be 5 minutes. Welcome back to the main room. All right. I hope you guys get acquainted with each other. Anybody wanted to share what they have discussed or shared in their group or in the room? I'd like to hear a couple. You can go ahead and mute yourself if you want to.
Hi, my name is Maria. I teach at Rancho High School in the math department. And I have Anna de Guzman, who also works with me at Rancho, and she's also in my group. And Jamie Moy from Del Webb Middle School. He teaches pre-algebra and algebra 1. The common denominator between the three of us is we have a great PLC team in our schools.
It's
So-
good to hear. It's good to hear that you have a great PLC team. I'm assuming that your administrator is very supportive. Any other thoughts? Any other positive or negative comments that you guys would like to share?
So I am Nermin Gattas. I work at El Dorado High School as pre-algebra for resources room, 9th grade. And I have a great BLC department too. Like,
It's good to hear.
thank you.
So I hope that those great PLC you have, great classroom support from your principals, administrators, great resources can translate to a better student outcome. Okay. I'd like to share my screen. I'd like to share my screen here for my PowerPoint. Okay, I hope this is the one. All right. Can you see my screen now? Okay. Yes. So just bear with me. I feel weird like sharing my screen, but anyways, so I had you this activity for 3 minutes. The agenda for today, I'm hoping we can get our target time. So I'd like to have a like around maybe 5 minutes remaining for you to get introduced to our Department of Education regarding support in math. By the way, my name is Mike, and I am your 6 to 12 EPP or support for Nevada Department of Education. So if you have questions regarding math 6 to 12, that's gonna answer that. Of course, I have a counterpart from K to 5. Okay, so let's take a look at this little infographic here or chart. So our superintendent is Joan Ebert, and then under her is a Division of Student Achievement. Our Deputy Superintendent, Anne-Marie Dixon. And then under that division, there's an office called Office of Standard and Instructional Support, which may be turning its name to Office of Teaching and Learning, our Director, Dave Brandkamp. And then under that is myself. Okay, I would be your 6 to 12 support. So basically, my biggest role is to support teachers all over Nevada for anything you need. I also supervise or oversee instructional materials, textbooks that would be approved for use in the district, supervise model curriculum for math. I also supervise learning resource for mathematics. And I support all districts in Nevada, including the charter schools. If there's an initiative for the state of Nevada regarding math, I would be heading that. And any activities, forums, meetings related to math, I would be a representative for the state. Okay. So right now we are looking for reviewers, teachers, whoever is interested to review materials for textbook to be used in the classroom. If you're interested, you can go to this form and click it. Okay. I'm going to share this later. I'm going to share this so you guys can have this. Okay. So this is the structure in our math support. Okay. So this is the state level. We have an area regional level support, and they have the district level. So if you have questions regarding your classroom, math classroom, you can always go to the chairperson or your PLC chair. Or you can go to the district curriculum directors. If you need a lot of support for teaching, whatever, always welcome to go to the different regional level support. Okay. So if you click this, I compiled all their contacts here. And you can click on this. There's a request form if you need mentoring. And these are the district under the northeastern, depending on the location. Okay. So you can see this information. Okay. Our next slide is regarding the website, NDE website, and has the math related information. So if you want to go to math standards, you can click this. Okay, let me share you the link. Okay, so I'm gonna share you the link. That way you can go along with me if you'd like to. And then that way, okay, so that's the link. And then you can take a look as we go along. So Nevada of standards, math standards, I'm sorry. So you click on this link and then it goes to standards. Okay. And then if you want to know about clarification materials, you can click that. And I'm hoping you can see this. It went to a different browser. And you should be able to see different clarification materials. Okay. And then if you want math connectors, so if you want to click the math connectors, if you have inclusive students and you want to see math connectors, what are the standards for a particular student? So let's say grade 18. So you can have this guide. So of course, these special ed students cannot go into the different rigors of a regular student. So they have a special standards to achieve. Okay. And then if you want to know about instructional materials, then you can go to that. And then basically you can see all state approved instructional materials for mathematics. You can click this and you would see all the list. Okay. And then distance learning. Distance learning, you can see everything about distance learning, approved provider for distance learning. And if you want to know how to interpret this, your MAPS test scores, you want to know, you want to click quantiles. Quantile measure is always on the math test scores for MAPS. Okay, so you can click that and it will go to this page. with us, as I mentioned earlier, is Jason. So I'm gonna stop sharing this and then I'm gonna talk. Jason is gonna talk more about what are quantiles and why is it important for you to know these measures and what are the resources linked to this that you can use individually for a student. I'd like to welcome Jason to take away and lead us into the quantile measure world.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. So hopefully everybody can hear me okay. And I'm going to share my screen here in just a second. But first, just wanted to say thanks to everybody for joining on a Saturday. So really what I was hoping to do today was walk you through just some basic information about the quantile framework and then introduce you to some of the resources that are available. By the way, these are free resources for Nevada educators. So we will not have time to explore everything, but I want to introduce you to a couple of the primary tools, and then on your own you can take a look. I think there's some additional tools that you may find useful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and Mike, I'm going to look to you if you cannot see my screen or something goes wrong. Then let me know, because once I start sharing my screen, I will not be able to see you all. So just speak up if you can't see anything. Okay, so by now you should be seeing my screen, and is that the case? Okay, good. Yeah, all right, so I'm going to start to advance the slides. I've just advanced to the agenda. Can you still see that? That was really my question. Do you guys see an agenda? Okay, perfect. All right, good. That's where it always gets messed up, is when you start to try and advance the slides. So anyway, like we said earlier, we really want to do just a brief introduction to the quantile framework, and then take a look at some of the tools that you all have access to. Some of you may already be familiar with quantile, and if so, forgive me that this may be a repeat for you. And some of you may have not even heard of it before and be wondering what the quantile framework is. Like I said, we have a limited amount of time, so we're not going to be able to dive too deep into it, but I want to give you just sort of an overview of what the quantile framework is. If you don't know, Nevada has been reporting quantile measures for years now, since 2017. And so, but you may have not noticed it before on those individual and if or on the map reports that you get. And if not, that's okay. That's why we're here today, to explain what it is. So the company that developed the quantile framework is Metametrics. So the quantile framework is it's a proprietary framework. It's a system of measurement. If you haven't heard of the quantile framework, you may have heard of the Lexile framework. That's our company too. That's what we're primarily known for, is Lexile. The Lexile is a system of matching readers to text, and your students there in Nevada are also receiving Lexile measures. About 35 million students around the U.S. get Lexile and quantile measures every year. And so if you're familiar with Lexile at all, then this will make sense to you. This is an extension of that work. Metametrics has been around since the mid-1990s. We actually started as a research organization in the mid-1980s, and then moved to be a commercial organization in the mid-90s. And we work with states all over the U.S. So states all over the U.S. report Lexile and quantile measures, including you all. And we also work with commercial education companies. You mentioned one already. You mentioned NDE, but you know plenty of others: Pearson, Scholastic, iStation, iReady. You know all of these companies, and those are all customers of ours as well. And so we work with just about every publisher in the U.S. at least. So what exactly is the quantile framework? Well, in the same way that the Lexile framework is a way to measure both text and student, we're measuring the complexity of text and we're measuring the reading ability of students, we wanted to be able to do the same thing with math. And so the best way to think of the quantile framework is to think of it as a scale. And we use that scale to do a couple of things. One, we want to go ahead and measure the complexity or the difficulty of a particular skill, math skill, or concept. And then we want to be able to do the same thing with a student. So I want to identify where is this student in terms of their readiness, in terms of their math ability. The question always comes up, so are you saying that you have measured the difficulty of our state standards, of our curriculum? And in a way, yes, but even better. So what we have done is we have broken down all of the state standards for all 50 states, including the Common Core state standards, because within every state standard is a math skill or concept. In fact, in many of them, there are several skills or concepts. Because oftentimes the way state standards are written, they're not just one discrete skill, they may involve 3 or 4. So what we have done, and I'll show you this in a moment, is we've broken down all of your state standards into their specific skills and concepts so that we know the quantile measure for every one of your state standards. And we'll show you where you can access that here in a second. The nice thing is you are also then receiving quantile measures on your students. Because you have students that are taking the state test. Some are, I believe, are taking the Smarter Balanced Interim. I think some are. But then, and they're also taking NWEA's MAP test, the Measures of Academic Progress test. All of those assessments report quantile measures. And in fact, some of you may be taking additional assessments. So for example, if you're taking the curriculum, using the Curriculum Associates math product called iReady, that reports quantile measures. iStation reports quantile measures. So check around in your school or your district, you may be receiving several different quantile measures on students. Just as you would expect, the scale, as the scale moves up, it ascends in complexity. And what I mean is that a 1200 quantile student would have that is a higher quantile measure than a student down at 200 quantiles. It means that student at 1200 quantiles has a great deal more mathematical knowledge and is able to and is ready to learn highly advanced skills and concepts. All right, so let's take a look at or talk about how we actually go about measuring your skills and your concepts. So the quantile framework is really so went too far. The quantile framework is really built on a couple of ideas. I mean, one, the idea here is that math ability is developmental in nature, so it essentially builds on previous knowledge, and that every skill that you learn is a prerequisite for an impending skill. And so what we're doing with the quantile framework is trying to capture the degree of test taker or a student's knowledge. For every state that we work with, we take the math content that those states work with. Sometimes it's just their state standards, and that's all that they work with. And there are some states that use very few textbooks, if any, anymore. And in those cases, we calibrate that content or those standards to the quantile scale. It's a manual process, the way that we do it. It's different than the way that we do Lexile. Lexile uses a piece of software to analyze the text. When it comes to math content, we're not able to do that. And so we have a team of math teachers, math experts, ex-math teachers, testing experts that look at the content and then calibrate it to the quantile scale that we've built. Same thing when it comes to math textbooks. Let me advance the slide. When we do a math textbook, we actually look at every lesson within the chapter. So if you're familiar with Lexile, you know that when you get a Lexile measure, it's on an entire book. So Charlotte's Web has a Lexile measure of 640L, 640 Lexile. But that wouldn't make any sense with a math textbook because each of those lessons are going to have a varying degree or a different degree of complexity. And so what we actually do in the calibration process is look not just at the chapter, but at the individual lesson and try and calibrate each individual lesson to the quantile scale. So if you're thinking about how we do this, if we separate every single math skill or concept that you can find within state standards, eventually then what you have is you have a taxonomy. You have a collection, a taxonomy of all of these math skills and concepts, and each one of those has a corresponding quantile measure. And what that means is we can then take that taxonomy and we can start to put it into an order, which means that if we can do that, then any one of your skills that we pick, let's say it's the Pythagorean theorem, we can look at the taxonomy and see what are the prerequisite skills that are necessary for me to be able to learn the Pythagorean theorem. So as you look out at your classroom and you see that some of your students are at 1,000 quantiles, and so those students are ready to learn about the Pythagorean theorem, but you're also looking out at your classroom and you're seeing that some of your students are at 600, 700 quantiles. Those students have some gaps. Those students are not quite where they need to be in order to learn the Pythagorean theorem. So in that case, what do? We look to those prerequisites, those skills that have been identified as prerequisites of our target skill, so that we can then start to differentiate for those students. So you can imagine a classroom split into 3 groups. You have students who have some gaps in their learning, and those students are focused on some of the prerequisite skills that are necessary for them to be able to learn and understand the Pythagorean theorem. And you may even have some students that are enrichment level students. Those are advanced students, and maybe they're at 11 or 1,200 quantile. And in those cases, we want to target those students with the skills that come after the Pythagorean theorem. So in that case, we want to match those students with resources that are going to match their ability level. Well, we're able to do that. And in fact, we have provided and built some tools that I mentioned earlier are free to you all. And so you all can access those. Teachers in classrooms can access those. We've even built a tool for parents. Don't worry, we're not asking parents to teach mathematics, but just to simply reinforce what some of the students are learning. I mentioned at the beginning, the quantile framework has been a part of Nevada's assessment system since 2016. And 2017 was actually when you began first reporting Lexile and quantile measures. We released a new hub, which is what I'm about to show you in a few minutes, which is that collection of tools, those free tools available to educators. It's been around for a while, but in 2019, we released a new version of one in which we brought all of those tools together, both Lexile and quantile, into one house, into one frame, and we'll show you that here in a second. So today, as I mentioned, you're continuing to get quantile measures. I only put a couple of instances up here on the screen, but as I mentioned earlier, there are multiple assessments that report Lexile and quantile. And if you get curious if yours does, you can always go to our website and look and see who our partners are, or you can send me a chat or an email, and I can usually tell you pretty quickly, unless it's somebody that's brand new. So today, students in grades 3 through 8 through the Smarter Balance assessment are receiving quantile measures, and then students that take the MAP assessment. I think you all give MAP in grades K through 3. It's worth mentioning that all students who take the MAP receive Lexile and quantile. So if you were to go into another state, go to Indiana, for example, where they're using MAP, I think 2nd through 8th grade, those students all would receive Lexile and quantile measures. It's just a part of MAP's reporting. Here you see a score report. This is probably a score report that you recognize, and you will see down at the bottom left, you'll see quantile range reported. Whatever that student's quantile measure is, MAP reports 50 quantiles below and 50 quantiles above as that student's range. So looking at the second student, for example, and we have a range of 1005 on up to 1105. So we actually know that student's exact quantile measure. It's 1055. But we wanted to let you all know that in case you were sort of trying to locate where exactly that student is. NWA chooses to report a range because there's always a little bit of error or variation in measurement. So they want to report a range to stay on the safe side. Okay, so with that, I want to move into the hub, which you see here on your screen. I'm going to go live with one of the tools, but a couple of the tools I'm just going to actually walk you through pretty quickly. There's no need to go live, but I would encourage you, when you have a few moments, take some time, explore these tools on your own. Again, they're free and they're definitely worth taking a look. So one I want to show you is called Teacher Assistant, which is really just sort of a very quick, down and dirty version of our math skills database. Really meant to aid in lesson planning. And so we'll show you that in just a second. The other one is Math at Home. And I mentioned that earlier. Math at Home, remember, is not meant as a tool that allows parents to teach new math skills or concepts. We've heard probably hundreds of times from math educators saying, please don't encourage parents to teach these math skills and concepts, these lessons, or we may find that we're having to unteach what they taught incorrectly. But the idea of having the parents reinforce what has been taught and making sure that the student is spending time on those lessons is valued and is to be desired. So that's why we've created Math at Home, and we'll show you that one as well. There also is the Math Skills Database. That is a much more thorough breakdown of your own state standards. And so we're going to show that to you in just a moment. There are some other tools there that may be of interest to you, things like the Growth Planner, the Career Database, which we've pulled in the fastest growing 700 careers in the US and looked at the math demand for those. That might be of interest to you if you have high school students or older students, or students who even know what career they're interested in, whether they want to be an architect or a video game designer or whatever it is that they want to be. So in your when you've got some time, I would encourage you to take a look at some of these additional tools. But today, I want to make you aware of three of them, just so you can begin playing around with the hub. Let me go back to I don't know if the URL was on the page or not. Yes, it was. So it's a pretty obvious one. It's hub.lexile.com. Again, hub.lexile.com. And in fact, if you forget after you don't write it down and you forget, it's not a big deal. If you just Google Lexile or Quantile Hub, it's going to come up, and you should find your way to it pretty quickly. So remember, this is free for Nevada educators. I keep saying that because people always forget. And so I want everybody to leave here at least knowing that it's a free resource. If you have never signed in before, I would recommend that you register first. You don't have to, but if you don't register, you can't save any resources because it wouldn't have anything to save it to. When you register, use your work email, because that is the domain that would be recognized. So whatever .edu or whatever it is that is your work email is what gives you free access to the hub. If for some reason you use that and you're not able to log in or not able to use it, sometimes people have switched domains. Let us know. It's an easy process to have that domain added to the whitelist. Parents can also use this, and again, parents do not have to register. Some parents don't want to register, and that's okay. The only problem with not registering is you can't save anything, right? So if they want to be able to save resources or return to their student's profile, then they'll need to register. If they don't care about doing that, then they don't need to register. Same thing with students, kids, they can access this as well. No need for them to register to do that. In fact, we would obviously prefer that they not do that. When you go in to register, make sure that you pick educator as your role. When we have your domain and educator as the role, that is what opens this up and gives you 100% complete free access to play around and save things and do things on the site. So make sure to follow that. I want to go back to what I said earlier, because this is where we're going to get into the purpose and the usefulness of these tools. So you may remember we talked about that taxonomy of skills, and so we have broken down all of the skills by what are the prerequisites, and then what are the impending skills. What are those that come next? And we have linked all of those to your own state standards, and we then make those available in a pretty easy to use tool so that you can forego some of that gap analysis. When we did this in Texas several years ago, I remember we actually did this live in person. And one of the reactions that we heard afterwards was, you know, that if I had known that existed, that would have saved me hours and hours of work, because what I had been doing was taking our state standards and going back and identifying essentially what are those gaps, what are those prerequisite skills that are needed for some of the students in my classroom. Now, we can't teach the skills or concepts, but what we can do is provide all of those prerequisite skills, so it gives you your time back, so that you're not having to do that. An example here would be today's lesson is properties of quadrilaterals. And you can see that today's lesson has a quantile measure of 680Q. It's the one right there in the middle. And I've got a student who has a quantile measure of 670, and it could be 700 or 590, whatever it is. But chances are that student is ready for that lesson, so that we would proceed just as planned and wouldn't do anything different. But we've also got a group of students who are at a lower quantile measure. If I look to the left, I see a student has a quantile measure of 500. And so in that case, I'm going to pick an easier activity, an easier skill, not just as busy work, but just as a way to start to build that student's knowledge so that eventually they will be able, or they will be ready for that, for the target skill. So in this case, I'm going to pick something like which angle appears to be an acute angle, so identifying acute angles. Same thing for the enrichment activity. I've got students operating at a much higher level. They're ready for lessons at a higher level. Every state, in fact, every district is different. Some math teachers appreciate having enrichment level activities for higher level students. Some have told me, argued very passionately that they're not going to do that students shouldn't work ahead. That's your decision. So, every teacher can make their own decision about what's appropriate in your class. But nonetheless, we wanted to provide those resources in case you do decide to work ahead. So for the student who is at a lower level, then obviously I'm going to focus on these lower level skills. And we wanted to make it even easier than that for both enrichment level students and students needing to focus on some of the gaps. We didn't want to just identify what are the skills the student needs to focus on. We also wanted to provide you with resources that you could then take and use for those students who may need a little extra instruction. So we'll show you that in a moment. So one way that we use this tool, here you'll see the teacher assistant, is we have taken all of your state standards. In fact, this is a Nevada specific state standard. We picked Nevada grade 3, understanding that shapes in different categories, rhombuses, rectangles, may share attributes like having 4 sides and similar. All right, so we know that that's your state standard, and we know that it has a quantile measure around, well, it doesn't have it in parentheses because it's just a screenshot, but we know that it is going to have a quantile measure of around 600, 680. And so what this does is, in a very fast way, very quickly and easily, I'm able to see what are those focus skills. They're right there in the middle. What are those prerequisite skills? And then, of course, on the right, what are the impending skills? So I know exactly what I need to be focusing on. What you see up above on the sliding scale is the supposed quantile range of my class, which ranges from about 500. I don't know what this is here since it's not actually live, but let's say it's about 800 or 900 quantiles. So this lets me know just at a glance, what are those skills that I need to focus on for those students that are within range, for the students here, or for any students that would be below range, that in this case be below 500 quantile. In that case, then I know that it's these orange or yellow skills that I want to match those students with. The nice thing about this sliding scale is you can move it around. In fact, you want to move it around to actually match the range of your class. So one of the things we would encourage you to do after this is take a look at your roster. Take a look at those quantile scores that are current for your class, so that you know exactly the range that you're dealing with. By the way, sadly, it is not uncommon to sometimes have as much as a 500 quantile point difference in your class, between your lowest and your highest performing student. This gives you a way to start to target those students. Let me talk just briefly about math at home, and then I want to go live. We're going to go live to the Math Skills database and take a look at that, because I want you to see how we match you up with resources. And by the way, all the resources that I'm going to show you in a moment in the Math Skills database are also available in what I just showed you, the Quantile Teacher Assistant. If I had clicked on any one of those boxes, it would have brought up the resources. Okay, so what is math at home? Remember, what we're concerned with here is remediation. We're concerned with reinforcing those lessons at home that the student is bringing with them from school. We are not trying to reteach these math skills or concepts. So we've made this pretty simple to use. All a parent would do is that they would pick, obviously, their state, Nevada, their grade, and then if they know their student's quantile measure, excellent. That is the most precise way to match that student to activities. We would encourage you to send that information home, and maybe on a PTA, on a parent-teacher night, a parent-teacher conference, show them this tool. Show them it's easy to use. Your kid's quantile measure is this, so that they can enter it. If you don't have a quantile measure on a student, you can actually just indicate whether or not they find student math material at grade level easy, just right, or difficult. And that is a way to go about using the tool. However, it's not nearly as precise as if you actually had a quantile measure. So here, once you identify the student's quantile measure, you can then go in and choose and filter by specific activity types. So you can say, I only want videos. It's going to include like, Khan Academy or Math Nerd and, many others. Quizzes, worksheets, lesson plans, things like that. Lesson plans, not because a parent is necessarily teaching a lesson, but those lesson plans are actually just almost more like textbook snippets, right? They are written instructions about a particular skill or concept followed by some activities. If the parent has registered, you'll notice that they can come over to the right and they can click add to my resources so that they can then save a list and keep an ongoing list of resources available to the student. If they don't register, that's fine. They wouldn't be able to save the materials, but they can go live right here and click on any of those resources in order to access those for their students. If you save a resource list, this is what it looks like. You can go to it anytime you log into the hub, and you'll see everything that you've saved so far. Okay, so that is a rundown of the first couple of tools. The Math Skills database, I think you're going to get more out of that if I go live to the website. And so I'm going to actually stop sharing for just a moment, and we are gonna try and go live. And you know how it is when you go live, so hopefully this will work okay. It seems to be fine. All right, so I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen, and again I'm gonna ask Mike, do you see a website? Do you see the hub? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. All right, good. All right, so I've already logged in. Remember, you would log in or create an account the first time you go, and then you scroll down to our math tools. Lexile tools are on top, and then you'll see the quantile tools. So from here, I'm going to go to something called the Math Skills database. If you forget that term, just remember database. If you can remember database, you'll find it. So I'm going to click on database. It looks a lot like the teacher assistant. So let's go ahead and pick your state. We're going to go ahead and go to Nevada. I'm very self-conscious about the way I'm saying Nevada. I feel like it is either Nevada or it is Nevada, and whatever it is, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. So I'm going to go to grade. Let's go to 4th grade. So let's take a look at your state standards, and you can see now that it populates with your state standards here. And you'll see if you start to read through these state standards what we mean when we say that even one state standard is often comprised of multiple skills, which is exactly what you see here. But we're going to pick a short one. Let's go ahead and use place value understanding to round multi-digit whole numbers to any place. So fairly straightforward. Remember to hit search People often forget to do that. And there it is. So that particular state standard of yours, that Nevada state standard, has a quantile measure of 660. Okay. So I'm going to click on it, and it's going to bring up several things. It's going to first bring up, we call it the knowledge cluster. And that sounds like a jargony term, but all that really means is what we mentioned earlier about prerequisites and impending skills, right? So it's going to bring up what are the prerequisite skills as well as what are those impending skills. It is also going to tell me what are the state standards associated with this particular skill. And you can see them down here. We knew that already, but there was also a state standard from 3rd grade associated with this particular skill. Now, let's say I'm teaching this lesson tomorrow, and I've got some of the students in class are on target. They're 600, 700 quantile. And so those students, I'm either going to teach this lesson exactly the way I always do, or I'm going to click on these resources and I'm going to say, show me the resources that you've got available. And I've noticed that you've got things like a quiz, you've got a lesson plan, you've got things like, I'm not sure what this is. It may be a worksheet or something like that. Yeah, an actual lesson plan along with a worksheet. Yep, that can be used in the class. So for any of these on-target skills, I'm going to look and see what are the resources available. And in some of these, you're going to see a ton of resources, 30 or 40. In others, it may be like this, where there's only 4 or 5. And in some cases, you may love the resources. In other cases, you may not really care for the resources. But they're free. And so use them if you like, and if you don't use them, use the resources that you typically use. So we know what we're going to do with those students that are on target, but what about those students that are not on target? So we've got a group of students that are not anywhere close to 600 or 660 quantile. And so in that case, I'm going to look and see what are those based on my, I'm sorry, I keep saying 660, but that's actually just the ID number. This particular skill is 410 quantile. Anyway, so I've got students that are at a much lower level. Let's say those students are down around 200 or 300 quantile. So what am I going to do for those students? Well, in that case, I'm going to look at the prerequisite skills. I'm going to use my math experience, my experience as a teacher, to decide which of these prerequisites do I think we should focus on instead for that group of students. In some cases, it might be more than one. It might be a couple. So let's go ahead and compare and order numbers less than 10,000. Or actually, I'm going to go with use place value with 1,000. So I'm going to click on that one. And when I click on that, it's going to give me the same sort of thing. You'll notice it's taken me to that knowledge cluster and now a whole new set of resources. So if I'm going to differentiate for the students in my class, this gives me a set of activities, videos, lesson plans, quizzes, worksheets, whatever it is that allows me to have those students focusing on the gaps that they need in order to help get them to where they need to be for the target skill. So where we see this being used, in fact, it is used, all around the U.S. So some teachers already have really nice sets of resources that they prefer to use. They're their own, and that's what they want to use. They still use the math skills database and those quantile measures to be able to match students up with resources. They use it to be able to identify what are the prerequisites for my students that are behind. But then they use their own resources. Others use the full thing. So they use it not only to identify what students need to be learning and what are those gaps, they then also use some of the resources. The nice thing is once you identify resources that you like, it's not like every year you're going to recreate. I mean, oftentimes you're going to use those same resources again. Up in the right-hand corner, you will notice the resource center that we mentioned earlier. For any of these resources I like, I'm just going to click on them. And when I do that, I can go to the resource center and you can see the ones that I've saved here over time. This is that use case I was mentioning. So for those teachers that use the full suite, you'll see that they've just saved those resources in their file here in the resource center. And next year they may update it a little, but they use those same resources again. what's the point here? The point is that you're getting this data on your summative and in some cases your interim assessments. And one of the things that we wanted to that was really important to us was that we in some way make that data actionable. We don't want you to just have a state scale score that that may not mean much for a parent or for a practitioner in the classroom. And so the hope is that you can take these quantile measures, you can do something with them in the classroom. You'll find them useful, practical, and actionable. And so what we would encourage you to do when you have a few minutes is to actually spend some time on the hub.lexile.com. Again, if you forget, just Google Quantile Hub and it'll come right up. So spend some time on it, register, play around with the tools, and then if you have questions as you start to get into it, let us know, and we'll of course welcome your feedback. Again, it's free, so there's no charge, and all of the resources are free. By the way, if you ever catch a resource on there that is not free, because a lot of times when we post it, it's free. It's rarely happened, but every once in a while, suddenly, Illustrative Math now starts charging for it. If that happens, ping us, let us know. Unfortunately, we have to take those resources down. We don't want to be selling anything. So anyway, I know we're coming up on time. We've got just a couple of minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions about the framework, about Quantile, about the hub. If it's about your specific, if it's more about your own curriculum or this meeting here, I'll direct those questions to Mike. So Mike, I'll turn it back over to you for any questions anybody may have.
Thank you very much, Jason, for sharing this very useful tool for the teachers. So if you guys have questions, I have a question here from Maria. How can we assign, let's say, a quiz to our students? So I think Jason have showed you guys about the teacher assistant. So what happened here is once you go to the teacher assistant, if you notice those map scores, winter, spring, those are pre-test and post-test scores. Go to the quantile scores and input that number to that search. Once you click that, you would have a lot of resources coming up as he showed you. There's video, quizzes, activities, you name it. And then you can pick and select those things. In fact, there's he showed you a lesson plan, which has some questions there that is appropriate to that particular kid. And then these are PDFs, so you can just copy and paste to a different file format if that's what you want, and then give it to the kids. So I hope I answered that question as accurate as I can.
Yeah, there's one of the things that we've looked at doing, believe it or not, there's actually a lot of privacy issues involved. So we're navigating it. So one of the requests that we've gotten is, let's say I open up a resource, I open up a Khan Academy video and I love it, and I want to assign it to a student. I want to send it to that student. Right now, there is not that functionality, right? I would have to either, I'd have to copy the link, or I'd have to download the PDF, whatever it is, and then send it to the student or print it or whatever. We are looking at that functionality, at adding that functionality into the Math Skills database. The other request that we've gotten is the ability to batch upload a roster. So instead of having to enter, say, an individual student, what if I have 30 students and I want to be able to enter, all 30 quantile measures for the year. So that way I can very quickly go and see that for student A, it's this resource, student B, it's this resource, and so forth. So that's something that our development team is taking a look at now. All right, and so Mike, we will send, and maybe Mandy already did, but if she didn't, we will send this presentation to you, and then feel free to circulate it, to send it around, in case anybody forgets anything. They'll at least have access here as to this as a reference.
That's right. That's right. Like I'd be happy to share it with you guys soon as I get that. Let me just see. Let me see if I have it here. Okay, while I'm searching that, you're welcome to send me questions if you have more questions. We still have 4 minutes. So remember, this is free and always available when you need, let's say, a lot of these teachers that I talk to, these are very good for substitute. Like if you're going or planning to be absent the following day, you can always go to this resource and put a little thing and then let the substitute do it. Like you can have a subfolder, put it in the subfolder, and that would be very convenient for you. Let's say have the substitute, let them watch this video, have these lessons, and you are always have a feeling that, oh, what I gave was really on target, not just a bunch of things that are random. These are well-researched resources. So that's one of the important things about this, that you can use it when you're absent, give it a substitute. You can always find some talking points for your parent-teacher conference. So you can always, when you go to parent-teacher conference, you show them their MAP scores and then plot those MAP score, get those numbers, and then put it on the teacher assistant, and then show the parents that these are the skills that the kids needs in order to be on the level, on grade level. So you can have it as a very good talking points for parents, and then they would realize how they can support their kid. So these are one of the two very important things regarding the tool. If some parents, you have some friends that are doing homeschool, these are also very good resource. So if parents come to you and ask you about career path, you can always give them an answer exactly that is tailored to the kid. And you can say, hey, based on your kid's math skills, these are the possible career path that he can go without too much intervention to get into that, because he already have the skills. So this tool can really help you navigate individually the kids or as a class. So remember those sliders, you can put a range for the class or you can have it for the kid. So any other questions surrounding that? We have 2 more minutes.
So the only thing I would mention is, there's some additional tools that in there that are, I think, pretty unique, pretty valuable. So I would, when you take some time to go look at the tools we covered today, spend a couple extra minutes looking, for example, at the career database or the growth planner, which allows you to map a student's trajectory. If you've got 2 or 3 quantile measures on that student, say over the course of the last year and a half. So spend some time looking at a couple of those other tools. I think you may find them pretty useful as well.
All right, I think we're running out of minutes or time.
All right.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Yeah,
appreciate all the information we got from you. Nevada will thank you for your time and effort coming on a Saturday afternoon. Thank you guys for coming on this session. And I send you the link for all of this of the slides. There's also a link for information how to contact me. If you're not able to contact Jason or Mandy, I'll be able to contact them. So thank you very much and have a great afternoon, guys.
all right. Thank you.
5 minutes, the next session comes in. Thank you very much, Jason.